Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Bernstein. I'm the board attorney for the Hillsborough Township Planning Board and the person who will start this reorganization meeting, public meeting of the Hillsborough Township Planning Board for Thursday, January 12, 2023. Salute to the flag, Mr. Lombardozzi, if you lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for indulging me. This meeting, the reorganization meeting, has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, also known as the Sunshine Law. Notice has been communicated to the Hillsborough Beacon, the Courier News, the Township Clerk, posted on the Township website at hillsborougnj.civicclerk.com, and available at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Complex in accordance with the public meeting notice. The next order of business is to give the oath of office to newly appointed members. We will give Mr. Delcours when he arrives later this evening. I believe he's running a bit behind. So, Mr. Lapani, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Ciccarelli, Mr. Sirachi, and Mr. Radowitz, would you please rise? And repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Radowitz,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly
all
perform
the duties
all the duties
of the office of
of the office of
class, whatever class member you are,
Class 2 or alternate one,
right, to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that, Michael, can we have the roll?
Ms. Smith is absent, and Mr. Delphine not here yet. Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Peason?
Present.
Mr. Sirachi?
Here.
Mr. Julian?
Here.
Mr. Scobo?
Here.
Mr. Hestag?
Here.
Mr. Radowitz?
Present.
Committeeman Ciccarelli?
Here.
Mayor Lapani?
Here.
And Mr. Boyce?
Present.
Mr. Bernstein?
Present.
Mr. Hoyt?
Present.
And Mr. Thompson? He's there.
Still.
He's focusing. The next order of business, gentlemen, is the election of a chairman. Do I have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to nominate Carl Sirachi as chair.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Lombardozzi, call the roll for Carl Sirachi as chairman of the Hillsborough Township Planning Board for calendar year 2023.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Sirachi?
Yes.
Mr. Julian?
Yes.
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mr. Hestag?
Yes.
Committeeman Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Mayor Lapani?
Yes.
Mr. Sirachi, congratulations.
Congratulations, Carl.
Yes.
See that?
That's what I figured. It's not working.
I gotta get back to this screen.
Or maybe it will work.
Hit the computer.
Yes.
I don't bring it to
Escape button.
Yeah.
Top left.
This one?
You get, no, on the keyboard. Yeah.
Wow,
Escape might get you back to it.
look at that. Nice and fun.
Come
on.
That's it. Hit the mouse.
Oh, that
Click on
looks
the
pretty
left,
real.
Color, wheel, whatever.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to thank everyone for allowing me to serve as chair again this year. So looking forward to a good year, and that's about as far as I will speak. So next up is election of a vice chairman. May I have a nomination for vice chair?
Mr. Chair, first, congratulations. Second, I'd like to nominate Neil Julian for vice chair.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I was waiting for him to say that. That's what I'll be the third.
All right. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, I will close nominations for vice chair. Everyone signal saying aye? Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Okay. All right, and then ayes, okay.
Yes.
Okay, roll call please for Neil Julian as vice chairman.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peason.
Yes.
Mr. Julian.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag.
Yes.
Mr. Committeeman Shkreli.
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes. Welcome back, Neil.
Thank you, everybody, for your support, and we'll save the township money again on the name tag, if that means anything.
So he fits the suit, right? Johnny Bravo.
No, I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
No. Thank you for serving again. Okay, next, take opening for nominations for secretary.
I'll nominate Ken Hashtag.
Second.
Okay, any other nominations for secretary? Hearing none, may I have a motion to close nominations?
So motion.
You got it? You figure out the tie. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, may I have a roll call for Ken Hashtag as secretary?
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peason.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag.
Yes.
Committeeman Shkreli.
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes. Welcome back, Ken. We'll be fighting the pen again in the planning office, so
The magic pen.
that's it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, next is an appointment of the master plan subcommittee. I believe that's a chairman's appointment,
See the clerk.
but being that I'm a nice guy, I think we need 4 plus 1
No
alternate.
more than 4.
Okay. So who are the 4 hands that want to go up to be on the master plan? I know, okay, Mr. Ciccarelli will be one appointee. I have 3 more seats. The master plan segment.
Rob Peason.
Rob Peason will be number 2. Who would like seat 3? I, that would be a cool job.
Can I nominate somebody between Frank? Can I nominate Frank Delcourt?
You better be careful, my friend.
Got to get a sign.
Carl, you're going to be the 4th?
Yes. And then who will be the alternate?
Try. Can I borrow?
You want to be the alternate, or do you want to, with Patty or Bruce? Bruce? Patty? All right, we'll have Patty as the alternate.
That'll teach you also not to come.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So those are official, right? No vote, good. All right.
Ciccarelli, Peason, Sarachi, Delcourt, and Smith.
So Delcourt once he's sworn in, right?
What?
Delcourt once he's sworn in.
Yeah.
Well, it's never met yet, so.
Of which no more than 4 can be present.
That's right. Okay, next up on the agenda is resolution setting the meeting schedule for 2023. I believe we have that in our packets. So may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peason.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag.
Yes.
Lost here. Committeeman Shkreli.
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes. Okay. Eric, do I need to do the considerations one at a time, or?
If the board would like to approve number 1 through 6 as a package, they may.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve resolutions 1 through 6?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any comments from the dais? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peason.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah. Yes. Mr. Hashtag.
Yes.
Committeeman Chicarelli.
Yes.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sriracha.
Yes, and Mr. Bernstein, welcome back.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it, and obviously, Pannoni Associates, welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr.
Of
Chairman,
course.
you can then do resolutions 7 through 11.
Well, I was gonna welcome Michael back too. Michael back,
Those as
you know,
Thank you.
okay, sorry. Number 7,
Through 11, if you'd like.
okay. Now, I'm just wondering, because I'm anticipating Mr. Wagner's question, in the rule, as far as start times,
Mm-hmm.
is that in one of these, or did we need to go back?
We adopted these.
Yeah, the schedule. So do we need to make an amendment to that?
Well, if you wanted, then you can take that as separate out of order.
Yeah, no.
Take that separately.
Right. But that's not inside one of these 7 through 11, so.
Well, no, actually, it's number 7, so.
No, adopting rules would be the meeting times, but what about the
Rules of order
schedule?
includes the issue at hand, which is start time.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Wagner, would you like?
Yeah, we had discussed that last year about the possibility of moving the start time from 7:30 to 7. It was decided that if we were going to make that change, that we would go ahead and do that at the reorg meeting. So fast forward 6 months, here we are. If that's still an option, I'd like to put that forth, that we change the meeting start dates from 7:30 to 7 p.m. on Thursdays.
And then moving the end time to 10 o'clock.
Yeah, everything would move
Right.
back that half hour. or so.
And last testimony is at 9:30.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, any discussion, thoughts from the board?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, no one objects to it?
Anybody that can't.
I think I remember the only one that had an issue with it was Frank, yeah.
Right, but I think he'll be okay with it.
Okay.
What?
No, I think Frank will be okay with it. I think his thing was just to start at the beginning of the year, not to change midway. Okay,
Mr. Chair, the schedule is also addressed in consent number 11. So it's the
Okay.
same,
all right.
as long as it trickles
We'll
down.
do that separately. But
We'll
Okay.
do that one separately,
So the
so,
proposal for consent, for resolution number 7, in the paragraph that says, first, the regular meeting will be held at 7 o'clock. No new business will be considered after 9:30, and no meeting will extend past 10. And the same goes in the second paragraph for the business meeting when and if necessary, starting at 7. No new business after 10, and no business after 9:30, and no meeting extending past 10.
so with that, may I have a motion to adopt resolution number 7?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Radowitz, I'm leaving you out. Mr. Radowitz.
Yes.
Committeeman Chicarelli.
Yes.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sriracha.
Yes.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask the board to please go back to the resolution setting the scheduled minutes and change the times accordingly.
Okay. So do I have a motion to change the times that we just discussed for the meeting schedule resolution that we adopted a few minutes earlier, starting at 7, ending at 10, no new testimony after 9:30?
No, it's
Mr.
really
Chairman,
only starting at 7. That's the only
Right.
item.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Change.
second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, maybe also in that schedule, though, the reorg meeting in 2024, would that be moved to 6:30 then? As long as we're messing with the schedule
Why
here.
don't we leave it at 7?
We'll leave that one at
Why don't we
7.
leave it at 7 and have the regular meeting immediately
Yeah.
follow? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nice
Okay.
try, Rob.
thanks for pointing out.
So we would move everything to 7 o'clock, and the organization meeting would be at 7 o'clock, with the regular meeting following immediately thereafter.
Yeah, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Scobah?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Mr. Matowitz?
Yes.
Committeeman Chicarelli?
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Schwartz?
Yes. Next, resolutions 8 through 10. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion from the dais? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Scobah?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Mr. Matowitz?
Yes.
Committeeman Chicarelli?
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Schwartz?
Yes, and now we have resolution 11 that we need to make similar
Change,
changes.
Mr. Chairman, would be in under number 2, A1 and 2. Change time to 7 o'clock. No new business after, 9:30. No meeting scheduled past 10, and the same in the second paragraph of 2 regarding the fourth Thursday, when and if necessary in accordance with the provisions of the schedule.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve resolution 11 with the time changes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
For the change.
There a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion on the dais. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Scobah?
Yes.
Mr. Hashtag?
Yes.
Mr. Matowitz?
Yes.
Committeeman Chicarelli?
Yes.
Mayor LaPlante?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Schwartz?
Yes. And next is comments from the public for items not on this evening's agenda. Well,
Regarding this meeting.
just this meeting. But also, I just caution that we cannot discuss any active applications because that could prejudice them at a future meeting. So if there's anyone that would like to.
Plus, we're having a meeting in the week after.
Right. So please come to the mic, state your name and address for the record. You can pull it
One
up.
item is a different mic. Okay, my name is Niyati Shah, that's Niyati, last name Shah, 3 Deer Run. So my comments are with regards to the master plan subcommittee. I've had some early discussions with David Coyce about my ideas, and I wanted to state them here broadly for the rest of you. As you look at the master plan and you look at revising the master plan, I would urge you to think about access within the town as you consider new developments and new applications, even ones that may currently be on the docket. With all the new housing that's popped up, I can tell you, if you wanna go to ShopRite at 6 o'clock to shop, which used to be a quiet time, you wanna go to Walgreens to pick up medication at 7, you wanna go anywhere past 6 o'clock, what used to be a quiet off-peak time is now peak. Lines are 10 people deep, you get run over in the parking lot almost, I have almost on two occasions, even though I've waited my turn to cross, and I've had my son with me, and people are just trying to get to Chipotle and get their meal. And the other part of this is also, as you build these developments and as you build these structures, many of them are en route to schools. They're en route to elementary schools, they're en route to high schools. And so I ask you, as you're considering traffic and other things, are parents and buses gonna be competing with tractor trailers and other traffic to get their kids to school? What's gonna happen in the mornings? And then if we're gonna say, no, you know what, we're gonna enforce that no tractor trailers be allowed on the roads or on certain roads until afternoon, well, who's gonna enforce that? Are we gonna have an increased police presence? And who's gonna pay the increase in the police budget to accommodate them enforcing these rules? So as you look at the master plan and you look at how zoning should be revised, we have to think about the communities where people are living, how people are going about their day-to-day, kids to school, going to work, getting groceries, dry cleaning, whatever, getting the kids to soccer games, right? The other thing that I wanted to share also, which I'm sure Mr. Coyce has probably shared also, is that, as you know, the governor has set the state on target to meet certain carbon reductions. Part of this is participating in a plan called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which aims to reduce carbon emissions in a variety of ways. One of those ways is the sequestration of carbon, which means that any technique you use to pull carbon out of the air, meaning storing it in our soil, storing it in our trees, you can sell carbon credits at an auction to industries that can't meet their targets and are looking to offset their carbon pollution. So what we're looking at as open land that can only be developed, and that's the only economic benefit we're gonna get out of this, there is another benefit that's a win-win for our communities, and it's a win-win for the environment and the climate going forward, right? We can sell the oxygen we're producing, we can sell the carbon we're storing, we can do this as private citizens, but we can do this as a township. And I would urge you to think about how we can incorporate something like that, because there are hundreds of millions of dollars that the state has in funding to hand out for townships, for organizations, for communities that are doing this and are trying to meet state carbon emission targets. So those are my 2 cents. Let's think more broadly about what's to come. Let's think about how people are gonna get around. Let's not be in another position where we're gonna have flooding that's 8 feet high, 6 feet high. People are losing their lives. People can't get to work. Kids can't get to school. And we're breathing air that's gonna make us sick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Bill Martin, 237 Hillsborough Road. Since November, I've been trying to get overheads of tractor trailers turning from Willow Road to Homestead Road and from Homestead Road onto Willow Road. I've had no success. I've been talking to or sending emails to a committee member. Can the planning board request those overheads?
That's not our jurisdiction, unfortunately. I think that's a governing body.
Who would
Who
that
could
be?
request that of the department heads? I don't know what overhead photos are available.
Well, I'd
Only
like
to the
graphs
extent they
showing the,
apply to applicable board applications and to the extent that the board is seeking such review by its engineer or its planner.
what does that mean? Who do I go to?
I think if there's an application, Mr. Coyce would be our go-to person if we need it for our review of an application.
Okay, can the residents have it for a review of the application?
Is that an Oprah? I don't know if we have these on file.
Well, I'm asking
Yeah.
for charts showing the turning radius of a tractor trailer with a 53-foot, trailer from Willow onto Homestead, from Homestead onto Willow, both directions.
I'm thinking it's an engineering department.
If they exist,
If they have that.
they can be Oprah.
Yeah, I would. I
If they don't exist, then can they be created by the engineering department?
That's a separate issue to be dealt with internally with the planning department, the township administrator, and the committee.
I'll just say that they're in the works.
They're in the works.
They're in the works.
Will they be available?
Once we have everything complete, yes, we'll be available.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just straight out. There you go.
I'm assuming anybody can come and talk
Mhm.
about, okay.
Yeah, just state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Debbie Leemore. I live at 238 Amwell Road in Hillsborough, which is one of the worst roads ever because it's also a shortcut over to New Brunswick. And the traffic, I have it all day long and night. And now they're talking about putting a warehouse on that road.
No, yeah,
Not-
sorry, that's gonna be an application that we're gonna hear at our meeting following this meeting.
Oh,
So
okay,
we won't be able to comment on that,
okay. All right,
but,
thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Pointing each other to death. Hi, Susan Gullah, Fort Hunt Club Road. The Planning Board and the Environmental Commission have been inundated for the last year or two, as you're aware, with a lot of major applications, warehouses and developments. And the flood of applications has made it apparent that maybe we need to make some changes in the application process. Specifically, the point at which an application is deemed complete could be reviewed at some level. I don't know if it's local or state, because I'm not an MLUL aficionado. But it's become obvious that applicants, for whatever reason, are rushing to submit applications that seem to be technically correct and complete, but aren't really ready to be acted on. These applications are rescheduled over and over, backing up the system for applicants who have taken care to have their files really ready to be heard. This results in a waste of time for the volunteer board members, mainly the Planning Board and the Environmental Commission, and residents who care enough to attend the meetings. It also results in a waste of time and money for Hillsborough's Planning and Zoning Office employees and our professionals who prepare for and attend unproductive meetings after meeting. And when residents come forward and hire attorneys and their own professionals, they are financially drained by constant last-minute cancellations of meetings, which they still have to pay their professionals for. Unfortunately, there's no point at which applicants can be disciplined, because I already asked about that, for submitting applications that are not really ready to go and then constantly rescheduled at the last minute, time after time. There's apparently no penalty. If this change can't be handled at the local level, so be it, go to the state. I'm sure other municipalities are having the same problems. In conjunction with the changes in the application process, I think this is being handled at the township committee member level, that some of the definitions of acceptable uses in certain zones are already being reviewed and tightened for sizes of buildings and things like that. And I want to touch on, I think Ms. Shaw touched on it. We have designated zones, but they need to be reviewed and changed in conjunction with changes that are occurring in the surrounding areas. I'm not sure if that can only be done at the master plan level, or like they did last year where they took the 8 lots and changed the zoning on them, although one got beat out by an applicant. But currently we have multiple proposals for marginal lots, which have unfortunately already been filed, backing into homes, areas that are flood, landlocked lots, large commercial buildings, exiting onto narrow back roads. We know this rezoning cannot turn on a dime. The applicants know it can't be turned on a dime and without possible legal repercussions. So maybe we need to get ahead of the game and immediately consider reviewing surrounding zones when something is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Drop the mic.
drop the mic, that's it. That's making a statement.
And I can't even bend down to get it.
Meryl Bisberg, 4 Hickory Hill Road. I just wanted to ask or make a request that since resolutions usually are, at least at the township level, they're sitting on the back. The resolution language usually at a meeting is usually at the back table. And even though the language may be really summary, at least it's something. We have no idea what's in the resolutions for tonight. So I'm asking if you could go over some of the things in here, in particular the dates, so that we don't have to wait to be looking at the calendar all the time, maybe the dates for the next couple of months for the next few meetings, and who some of the consultants and professionals are who were approved. And
Ms. Bisberg, on that point, the next meeting, we'll be setting all the dates and all the applicants. So you'll get to hear all that in person as we go through all of them.
But you determined the dates of meetings, right?
But then when they come
That's
in
at
the
least
next
something.
meeting,
Yeah,
each person's going to be scheduled a date. So you'll be able to hear them all and who they will be.
okay. I think that was advertised for this week, but in any case, I did hear you say you have the meeting dates, so that's all I'm asking for right now. And ongoing resolutions, for instance, those that are discussed in executive session but not voted on until executive session is over, we have to OPRA those, and if a resolution becomes part of the ongoing law, I don't know why that can't be posted under the planning board files. so that those don't have to be Oprah'd because it's law that's passed. That's one thing. The other thing was, I just want to bring this to the planning board's attention. In 2021, we passed an ordinance 2021-06 that amended Chapter 188 of the Hillsborough Township Code, the Land Use and Development Code. It was in regards to affordable housing, and although I understand that these are passed at the township level, the planning board does have some responsibilities with affordable housing, and there is an obligation to, on July 1st of every year, to provide annual reporting of the status of all affordable housing activity within the municipality. I have been trying for about a year and a half to get this information. I've had to Oprah just specific information, but this is part of this law is that this be posted automatically on the planning board files or on the planning department files. So I'm just asking that the planning board, since this is a newly invested planning board, pay some attention to this and help that information get posted. And there is one other thing here. Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Ms.
Also-
Frisberg, it's not a planning board obligation, it's a township obligation. It's currently on hold while the township is going through the completion of its compliance application as per the special master in the court. So when that is all completed, the governing body will be obligated to put the annual review up once that's finished.
Okay, but this law doesn't show anything on hold, and there's other stipulations.
I'm well
in there
aware of
which
what
are
was
current.
approved. I'm telling you where it is at this current time, why you can't find it, because it doesn't exist right now.
Okay, well, when I did Oprah, the balance of the affordable housing funds, I did get an answer after some probing
And
because
for the funds,
because
that's
there
one
is a
thing.
law that states that that's supposed to be reported, and so they had to comply.
And I'm
with
telling
it.
you, the township has an exemption right now pursuant to the court. And it's not and more importantly, it's not the planning board's obligation relative to the annual review.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nirav Majmudar, NIRAV, 15.
Mike, please.
Sure. Is that better? Okay. Nirav Majmudar, 15 Todd Street. Wanted to say a couple of things. One is basically with all these housing developments which have been coming up, when you look at their prospectus or whatever, it says, let's take as an example Franklin. Okay, we're going to put up 186 houses, but there are only going to be 150 kids coming out of there. Does the town actually go in and audit after the fact, when the development is up, how many kids have enrolled in school? Do we do that?
I don't think that's legally possible.
First of all, it's what you're hearing is that the developer is suggesting, that the application will produce 150 children. There is no requirement under the municipal land use law to guarantee that will in fact occur unless it's specifically set forth in the resolution, and I can't recall a resolution in nearly 40 years that has specifically stated the absolute number of children that can be in the school. If there is an audit requirement at all, it would fall under the jurisdiction of the Board of Education because they're responsible for student population, not the municipality.
But then isn't the municipality also responsible for assessing, basically saying, hey, we got 5,000 kids extra now. Okay, we are actually assessing taxes on the other people, not the people who are the renters out over there. Isn't that the responsibility of the municipality to kind of make it even?
And the assessment's on the value of the property, not on
Not on the number.
Not
of
on the
children,
individual.
Not on the number of people living there.
The taxes are paid to the Board of Veterans Municipality by the property owner of either if you're paying rent, your taxes are based in your rent, which goes to the property owner, and he pays the taxes.
Is it proportionate to the other taxes?
Yes, it's all based on assessed value. Just like
Okay.
we don't care how many kids you have in your house, but your assessed value sets your taxes.
Okay. Another thing, you have the slogan out over here, one of the best places to live in America. Is that true as of today, especially with the development, whatever is going on in this township? Should we be changing that?
I'm not going to use this forum for entertainment purposes. Quite honestly, it's insulting.
This is a fact, right? So that's all I'm saying.
Yes, this township has been awarded numerous awards. And if you want to do some politicking, you can do it at the township committee level. This year, we've got board hearings here, applications to hear, not time for grandstanding.
Okay.
And that's not the
Thank you.
purpose of this.
David Brooks, 7 Winding Way, Hillsborough. In the past, I had solicited or asked this board.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, following.
I'm calling a recess right now. So we're back on.
Carl, I think I can get sworn in.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, Springsteen, can we swear in Mr. Delcor?
Why not?
I state your name.
Thank you.
You solemnly swear on the Constitution of the United States.
I state your name. Right. Come on.
I, Frank Delcor,
You solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the
of the
Constitution
United States
of the United
and
States
the Constitution
and the Constitution
of this state
of this state
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my abilities,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments
and
established
to the governments
in
established
the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
all the duties of the office
of Class 4 member
of Class 4 member
of the Planning Board,
of the Planning Board,
seat number 7,
seat number 7,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
There you go. Welcome back.
You can clap.
Okay, Mr. Brooks, let's try again.
Let's try. David Brooks, 7 Winding Way in town. Welcome to 2023, and I know we're all going to be very professional and cordial and work together. I have bring you the People's Podium because we had asked for this months ago and we don't seem to be able to get it, so I thought we'd bring our own, simply because I'm sure you all appreciate the challenge of speaking within or in front of all of you. We're little people at our little place here, and you're all on the dais. It can be intimidating for people. I will tell you, it's not intimidating for me anymore, but it's a little bit of self-help, I think, and a way to allow the public to feel a little bit more comfortable being able to come up here as people fumble with their notes and try to handle the microphone. We want to create an environment here that welcomes the public. This is one way I think we can do it. We want to create a means for people to feel comfortable to be able to get up and speak before each of you, because there are critically important decisions that are being made that impact everybody who's here and everybody who's here. I guess I should clarify that because I'm pointing to all the public and I'm pointing to all of you. We all live here. We all want to make the best decisions for the township. And I think creating an inviting atmosphere for the public is critically important. I would ask that the township consider getting a more permanent podium. I would also ask that maybe we get better microphones or even wireless ones as the applicants get. I think we've discussed this a number of times. We want to make sure that our voices are heard as well as the applicants' voices. They seem to dominate. They seem to tell you what to do. And I know you don't necessarily listen, but we want to make sure that we have that opportunity too on an equal footing. As you probably have realized by looking out here, we're here to stay, just like you're here to stay. And sometimes I think of this like the old West, where you used to have the snake oil sales folks come in and try to promote things to people because they were going to make their lives better. We're not in the old West. We don't tar and feather applicants, although I think some people would think maybe those applicants don't care about what's going to happen to this town. And I think that's the important thing that I can at least hopefully impart upon all of you, new members, as well as repeat members, continuing members, I should say, that
we're really concerned about where the town's going. And we want to make sure that it's going in a direction that is going to represent the best interests of our residents, so we can get a new one of those coming up. We also want to make sure that this board does the right things from the point of view of making decisions that are going to best reflect the interests of all of the residents here. I think that's one of the reasons why you see so many people here. And I will add one other comment, which I think is very interesting. If you take a survey of all the people that are in the audience right now, and you ask them what party they're in, you're going to find that there's an equal distribution of Democrats and Republicans. This is one of the interesting issues that has united people regardless of party. And for that, I say great, because it's about time that we all came together to fight for what we believe in, and to stop allowing some of the applicants who act like bullies from being bullies to all of us. And I'm sure you can all agree that we don't want that either. So again, I want to thank all of you for your open minds and for your willingness to listen, and have a good year. We'll see you.
Yep. Any other comments from the public? Okay.
Maria Janusik, 720 East Freck Avenue, Manville, New Jersey. Also a Hillsborough Township property owner, Block 86, Lot 32155 Camp Road. Numerous applications that come before this board that have public hearings before this board are adjourned and then rescheduled quite a bit time later. And a lot of what was provided from witnesses' testimony is forgotten, because nobody remembers, what was said. We're told, watch the YouTube video. That YouTube video is a long time and it's monotonous. Are there verbatim transcripts provided of these public hearings that were held for these applications when they come before the board again for continued public hearing?
With the schedule, it's usually at the end of the application, we get the transcripts.
No, I will tell you there are verbatim transcripts provided to my office, and we provide them to the planning board clerk, and they become available, I believe, and Mr. Coyce will correct me, I believe they become available on civic clerk sometime thereafter. And if they're not, I'm assuming they will be at some point, but they're not any more exciting on paper than they are.
I was going to say, I mean, I can't imagine that a transcript is any less monotonous than a video, but that's just me.
With respect to Michael, you're right.
Okay, I would like to say, I was at a public hearing for M&M Realty, and I had asked that question, if there is a verbatim transcript available, and I think it was Mr. Ciccarelli who said yes on civic clerk, and it was not available. And right now, as of now, the verbatim transcripts have not been available. And as far as boring and monotonous, yes. But if I want to refer to something, I can turn a page and say, oh, here's what it is, versus watching a YouTube video over and over. So this is very important, because we don't remember what the witnesses for the applicant have said. And this way we can refer to it and we can say, oh, this is what was said. Was this changed? Was this amended? Was this taken care of as it was supposed to be? So I am requesting that there be verbatim transcripts made available on civic clerk with each application that comes before this board for a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, verbatim transcripts will be provided when they are provided. They do not come immediately after a meeting. And when they are received by my office, they will be turned over in an appropriate manner to Ms. Paget, and they will be handled accordingly, as they have been, I believe, for a while now.
Okay, thank you.
So Brian Tarantino, Fairfield Lane. I actually just wanted to, I don't have a lot to say, just to kind of second what Ms. Janusek said about transcripts, that would be tremendously much more useful than the video. So and I haven't been able to find them. So if they're posted on Civic Clerk, it's in some place, I don't know where it is. So absolutely, that would be extremely valuable for us to be able to find things that people said instead of having to, watch a long video. So if there was a way to make those available, I know when, they're available when they're available, I get that. But if they can be provided, posted, with I don't know, wherever it makes sense to you guys, but we absolutely would really appreciate it if we could get those.
We'll work with Mr. Coyce.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion for an adjournment.
Can I just, before we, because I really want to, I'd just like to make sure, Mr. Bernstein, because we're getting into commentary around expectations of what this board is supposed to be doing as it relates to applications. And I want to reset sort of the expectation that what we are tasked to do legally is to evaluate the application on its merits. And your input is incredibly valuable into that process. But there seems to be this perception that every applicant is our enemy, or we're supposed to be in direct contradiction or opposition to every applicant. And that's not how this works. We're supposed to evaluate it based upon planning. There are municipal land use laws that we have to follow. So we work really hard to try to figure out what's best for the town. But we have to do that in the context of what the law dictates that we do. So I don't want there to be any misconception that somehow we're supposed to just throw every applicant out on their ear because we don't want some type of development in town. That's just not how it works. And we're gonna listen to it. We're gonna take feedback from the people. We're gonna try to make it better where we can. But there are things we have to do legally, and that's what we're gonna follow. So I don't know if there's anything else, Mr. Bernstein, from a legal perspective I missed.
I'm concerned by some of the comments made by some of the public that somehow these applications have to all go in a certain way. And they are all going to go in one way or another depending upon what's put before this board on each individual application as they so see fit. Public has already tended to forget. We turned down an application recently which has now led to 2 lawsuits. So the board will look at each and every application as what is put before them. The testimony, the witnesses, the evidence will render an opinion, and guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed, somebody won't like it. So the issue will be who that is, but the public needs to understand that these are not foregone conclusions. And the applicant, and I think I made this comment at a meeting not too long ago, I will tell you, applicant's counsel is not always any more happy with me than the public is happy with me, or anybody else is happy with the board or not happy with the board. It's just you don't get to see it in a 2.5-hour meeting before the ongoing situation. So folks, just let every application go in as they are, put the evidence you want the board to consider, and the board will consider it at the appropriate time in the appropriate place. And it's going to take a while because in spite of the fact this is not court, these applications all take time and they will go out over months, as you will hear in a few minutes. They're going to get scheduled over a few months. The board only meets so many times. The board's not going to meet every week. The applicants want us to meet every week. We don't. And therefore, they will be handled in the appropriate time in the appropriate place.
Thank you. So to move on to the next meeting, I'm going to ask motion to adjourn.
So vote.
Well, you're going to have a public part at the next meeting. We got to get this, sorry, go
I'll
on.
make the motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The reorg meeting is adjourned.
Roll over.
Go right into a 7:30 meeting.
Yeah. I'm just, yeah. Mr. Bernstein? Or, yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm just
I have
getting
those
my,
paused right now.
what's that?
Like I have those paused right now, just wait. Give me the signal and I'll turn it back on.
I'm just getting to my next agenda. Okay. All right. Ready? Okay. All right, welcome everyone to the Hillsborough Township Planning Board regular public meeting of January 12th, 2023. Please join me in salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised this meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, otherwise known as Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting has been communicated to the Hillsborough Beacon, the Courier News, the Township Clerk, posted on the Township's website, and available here at the Hillsborough Township Municipal Building. In addition, application documents have been made available on the Township Civic Clerk website, and complete applications are on file in the Planning and Zoning Department for inspection in accordance with public meeting notice. That may have a roll call, please.
Ms. Smith is absent. Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Peason?
Here.
Mr. Dokor?
Here.
Mr. Scobo?
Here.
Mr. Hastag?
Here.
Mr. Radowitz?
Present.
Committeeman Chicarelli?
Here.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Here.
Chair Sarachi?
Here.
Mr. Coyce?
Present.
Mr. Bernstein?
Here.
Mr. Hoyt?
Here.
And Mr. Thompson's here, and I'm here.
Excellent. Okay, first up, consideration of meeting minutes. We have a few of them this evening. First one, November 3rd, 2022 meeting minutes. Mr. Bernstein, who's eligible?
Eligible members are Mr. Peason, the chair, the vice chair, Mr. Scobo, and the mayor.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
Yes. Next, I have the meeting minutes of November 10th, 2022. Mr. Bernstein?
Mr. Peason, the chair, the vice chair, and the mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, comments from the dais? Roll call, please.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
Yes. And last, meeting minutes of December 1st, 2022. Eligible members?
Everyone, except Mr. Radowitz.
That's right. Okay, may I have a motion to
make
adopt
that
or approve? Okay, have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Dokor?
Yes.
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mr. Hastag?
Yes.
Committeeman Chicarelli?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
Yes. Next up is, we have a resolution for consideration. It's M&M Realty Partners at Hillsborough LLC, the West Track with the file number 22-PB-16-MSV. Mr. Bernstein, any comments?
We are satisfied with the resolution in the current situation. We believe it follows the transcripts and the testimony before and the conditions set forth therein.
Okay, and there were a lot of conditions.
Yes, there were.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
The eligible members
Oh, sorry.
are everyone but Mr. Radowitz, Mr. Chicarelli.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Dokor?
Yes.
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mr. Hastag?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Sarachi?
Yes. Going to be going a little bit out of order here. We don't have consideration of ordinances. I want to get to the scheduling of 2023 dates. So, I don't know if there's any legal representation that will speak on the applications?
Well,
Or how,
I think Mr. Coyce has had conversations on the
Okay.
initial scheduling with all the applicants and the
Any
noted
objectors?
objectors for the applications. The following dates are currently proposed.
Okay.
For February the 2nd, the Weston Road LLC application, which is Costella.
Okay.
For February 9th, Homestead 279 LLC. For March 2nd, Homestead Road LLC. For March 9th, Homestead Road 279 LLC. For April the 6th, Homestead Road LLC. April 13th is currently open. May 4th is Western Road LLC, and May 11th is Homestead 279 LLC. The 1170 Millstone LLC application is currently on hold. I believe a time of decision rule has been signed through the end of June, and we'll be having conversations relative to 303 Amwell LLC when Mr. Ogrodnik appears in a few minutes before the board with the application.
Okay.
But that, folks, is the recommendation. The question is, does the board want these to be noticed, or will this be sufficient notice by the approval of these dates?
I would offer notice. This is a half a year of calendar times, and I think it's fair to the public.
Could you read those dates one more time? People are writing that down, Counselor, so.
Right.
For those who are trying to get down.
I got them.
Sure.
You got them? Who wants to read them?
February Groundhog Day, Weston Road LLC, February 2nd. February 9th, Homestead 279 LLC. March 2nd, Homestead Road LLC. March 9th, Homestead 279 LLC. April 6th, Homestead Road LLC. April 13th is currently open. May 4th is Western Road LLC, and May 11th is Homestead 279 LLC. Mr. Chairman, I'd also indicate there may be other applications on those nights that I've currently mentioned, not related to the current pending warehouse applications, depending on what else comes before the board. But those are the applications at the moment. 1170 Millstone is on hold, and 303 Amwell, I think, will be somewhat addressed when Mr. Ogrodnik comes before the board shortly.
Okay, and for all of these, have time of decisions been extended?
Time of decision has been extended, I believe, Mr. Coyce, at least through June 30th for all of them. Mr. Coyce, June 30th for all?
I believe council hasn't agreed yet.
Well, applicants council want to come
All
up?
right, so we're not going to take a vote on these scheduled dates? Because unless I get a time of decision, we're not going to book these.
What? He's got them.
Okay.
Mr. Ogrodnik is going to sign his life away.
June 30th.
June 30, on all of them. Obviously, if you don't need them, you won't need them. Obviously, if we do, we will. Mr. Coyce, these will all be up on the civic clerk at some point, probably next week as well.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it is a motion with notice to continue. We'll start with Homestead 279 LLC. Homestead 279 LLC, file number PB 22-PB-05-SMSPV. The time of decision has been extended to June 30th, 2023, and the application will start to be heard on February the 9th at 7 o'clock or soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, and continued potentially to March 9th and May 11th.
Okay, so we're going to take votes on each one of these?
Yep.
Okay, separately. Okay, so I may have a motion to approve the meeting dates and time of decision extension from Homestead 279 LLC.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments? Roll call.
And just to confirm, I see John, you're abstaining from this one?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Pease?
Yes.
Mr. Delcor.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hestag.
Yes.
Mr. Radowitz.
I think he needs to abstain. You may need to abstain.
Oh, we need the abstain. Okay.
I think you
Mr.
need-
Ciccarelli.
Abstain.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes.
The next application, Mr. Chairman, is 1170 Millstone Road LLC, Redcom File 22-PB-09-MSPV. Mr. Ogrodnik has provided a time of decision extension to June 30th, 2023. This application is currently on hold. Date to be determined at a future date, so no further notice needs to be given beyond this time, except to accept the time of decision extension.
Okay.
I need a motion.
I have a motion to adopt the dates and time of decision
So
extension.
moved.
Second.
Okay, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Delcor.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah. Mr. Hestag.
Yes.
Committeeman Ciccarelli.
Abstain.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes.
The next application, Mr. Chairman, is Western Road LLC, Costella, file number 22-PB-03-MSPV. We have an extension of time of decision to June 30th, 2023. This matter will be heard on May 4th, 2023 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter as the matter may be heard.
Okay, I have a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Delcor.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hestag.
Yes.
Mr. Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes.
The Bryson application will be before you on the 2nd of February. It will be scheduled. We don't need an extension. So that will be on the 2nd of February.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion?
Without further notice, there's no need
Right.
to do and take any action. The next
Wait,
application,
we didn't,
there's no action.
oh, we don't need to,
No action on that.
okay.
As to Homestead Road LLC, file number 21-PB-25-MS/MSPV. We have an extension from Mr. Ogrodnik through the end of June 2023. This will be scheduled with notice for March 2nd, April 6th, at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, the matter may be heard.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Delcor.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hestag.
Yes.
Mr. Committeeman Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes.
Chairman, I'd ask for a 5-minute recess, please.
Okay, we will be back at 1:15. Okay, we're back in session. Okay, Mr. Bernstein?
Mr. Chairman, regarding the Western Road application, file 22-PB-03-MSPV, to confirm what may or may not have been heard, the two dates for Western Road, and I'll ask the board to memorialize this, will be February the 2nd and May the 4th. So February 2nd and May the 4th.
Okay.
So I'm going to need a resolution again to confirm that. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
This is with notice.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Delcor.
Yes.
Mr. Scobah.
Yes.
Mr. Hestag.
Yes.
Committeeman Ciccarelli.
Yes.
Mayor Lapani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Sarachi.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. Okay, we are going to go back to business from the floor for matters not on the agenda. I know we heard quite a bit in the first meeting, but same rules apply here.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please.
Craig Berlin, 1 Allshouse Street. I just wanted to mention and get on the record that New Jersey painstakingly went to the business of putting out guidelines for situations just like this. It was disappointing last year that in all of the meetings we went to, it was never cited, it was never used as a reference, it was never used as guidance. It was put out as guidance for the New Jersey warehouses. It is very specific as to what we have here. And I think that if the board were to hear some of that or present some of that, it would take away some of the feeling of arbitrariness or just, that things look like you guys are kind of making up as you go along. There are kind of rules that you abide by, you can stretch them. I know they're not absolute, but I wasn't satisfied with that answer last year. Yeah, the guidelines are out, but we don't have to listen to them. Other places are. They're doing a really good
Mr.
job.
Berlin, that was not the answer. The answer was the guidelines are in place, they are not binding. They never said we would disregard them. So would you please, for the record, correct your statement because you're leaving the impression that in fact the board said something
I stand correct.
it did not.
I stand correct.
Thank you.
Can you tell me if they were cited or referenced at any point in any warehouse meeting last year?
They have not been cited because no one who would potentially cite them has been up yet and make presentation, i.e. the objectors of the public. I can guarantee you, with all due respect to Mr. Ogrodnik, his clients aren't going to come up and cite him because the guidelines are not necessarily favorable to his applicants. But let me make the point again, as I've made before. The state, in its inimitable fashion, puts things out, gets people's hopes up, and doesn't enact them. They are guideline recommendations from the State Planning Commission. There has been no action taken by any official body in the state of New Jersey that makes them binding on any municipal land board, planning, zoning, or land use. They are for consideration, but they are not binding, nor can they be the final determining factor for the board until such time as either the governor puts them into effect or the legislature adopts them.
And also, just correct me, but they are also conditions.
They're they're guidelines.
Right.
The
No, guidelines,
is exactly what they are.
But there's some conditions with them, meaning that those applications have been approved, and they put those conditions.
And one of the conditions is that any application currently pending is not necessarily governed by the guidelines, to the extent the guidelines have any impact.
Right.
But
Well, I'm a little confused. Can you explain that to me? So you're telling me it doesn't relate to stuff that is already in motion, but then you're also telling me it doesn't relate to the stuff that isn't in motion yet because it doesn't relate to anything because it's not.
that's why they're
absolute.
guidelines. That's why they're guidelines.
Okay, you'll probably be hearing a lot of them from me. I would suggest other people try it.
And you are more than welcome to put them before the board, but understand, the state does things in certain ways. One of them is the state almost never retroactively applies actions to items currently in motion. Just like the township can't change the zoning for any application that's currently deemed complete before this board or the zoning board. Secondly, they are conditioned that they don't apply to. You can look at them, but they are not necessarily to apply to current situations. They are apply to going forward.
But they still don't have to be listened to. They can still be.
They will be considered accordingly, but understand, they don't have a great deal of weight because they have no enforcement of the municipal land use law
I
per se.
understand. I just like to suggest that it's a wonderful reading resource and a great reference.
All the board members have been provided a copy of the guidelines when they came out last summer.
We've all read them.
Wonderful.
And also, you have to understand, a lot of those guidelines are for planning for future, not for, like as Mr. Bernstein said, for applications that are now. So it's a very broad spectrum of things to look at and things to plan for in the future. So how it affects each individual application coming in us the next year, each one's on its own merit. But we have read them.
Mr. Berlin, I'll sort of parrot what the chairman has said more times than I choose to mention, as has Mr. Delcor in his previous life and the mayor. If you want to get something really done, and it's a magic year, all 120 of them are up for re-election this year, is get this legislature to get their hands around things they don't want to get their hands around. Warehousing, affordable housing, fill in the blank, all the stuff everybody comes up here and doesn't like, it's here and in the courts because the legislature won't touch it. Well, they're all up. Send the message to them as much as you send the message to all of us. They have more impact than we do.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
is Tuyen Lei for Ivy Lane. Can you hear me?
You gotta speak up a little
Next to the
bit.
microphone.
Even with the microphone, you gotta speak up a little bit.
Okay. All right. Is this better? Okay. So I'd like to ask general questions since this is the first meeting of the year, and you may be thinking about your what you would like to accomplish in 2023. And I just want to say that the reason why I am here and maybe other members of the public is that that we care about our town, and we're just trying to encourage our planning board to consider certain things that, and we would like to understand what you can and cannot do. So I just want to preface that with my question. So considering that we had 2 flooding-related deaths during Ida and increasingly severe floods in recent years, what are the planning board's goals and objectives specifically in terms of reviewing existing Hillsborough ordinances and zoning?
Man, the planning board has no impact. Governing body deals with the ordinances. The planning board addresses them as they are put into place, separate and apart from the creation of the master plans. How flooding and stormwater in terms of the ordinances has to go through the governing body.
And you wouldn't be giving them specific.
When the committee submits ordinances for board consideration, the board gives its input at that point.
So we need to go to the township committee meeting for this question.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sure
fair.
the mayor, Mr. Chicarelli, will be happy.
Have to ask.
Well, just there are some regulations out there that may come, that the governor did not enact on, the emergency plans for water, which may or may not come. So realistically, until we see some new laws, if they do come, to sit there and try and plan now would be almost a waste of time because they may have to change all over again. Do you know what I was referring to?
Yes, I do.
So we would hope to see some concrete stuff coming down from Trenton. Then we can then readjust all the ordinances. But right now, to do that exercise and have to do it again would almost seem frivolous.
Okay, all right. And so while each warehouse may meet the current impervious surface requirements for each application, has the planning board evaluated the impact of all the proposed warehouse applications along with the other developments or projects that we have had over the last few years?
I would advise the board not
Right.
to answer
You
that
can't, 'cause
question,
unfortunately-
since the board has to take this in a quasi-judicial manner based on each and every application.
Well, I understand. So even if they don't.
Conjunction or individually, the board, unlike the township committee, the planning board sits as a quasi-judicial body. They hear evidence just like a court and they make determinations. Yes, they will take into account, based on what is provided to them through their professionals and testimony, what multiple impacts may be, but they cannot comment, and they will not comment as long as I'm here, on the issue of what the impact of application A has on application B, has on application C, and in the totality of the applications, irrespective of what they are.
So-
Because they have to be looked at individually.
Okay, I can see that the planning board has to evaluate each application.
That's the
But then
group here.
who evaluates the totality? Because if you think about all the developments and all the warehouse applications,
State of
if
New
you,
Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the governor, this board, this township committee, everybody in the state of New Jersey has been waiting for nearly a year for the governor to promulgate a set of emergency regulations he said he was going to promulgate a year ago. Once that ever gets done, DEP will evaluate them and implement them and give guidance to the various governing bodies, municipal boards, et cetera, on what to do about stormwater. But it starts in Trenton.
okay, so I know what you're talking about. So when the updated inland flooding protection rules are adopted, what is the planning board's plan to adjust the well, I guess now it would be the township
The
committees.
governing body's plan and everybody else's would be to figure out what ultimately gets approved and address them accordingly. At this point, it's nothing more than speculation and conjecture.
I think it's more than just speculation.
At this point, in the absence of new regulations, it's speculation and conjecture, ma'am, with all due respect.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Rich Gorman, Winding Way. I just have something.
Mr. Gorman, you might want to pick the mic up
That's all right.
so you
It's
don't
gonna
have
be
to,
quick.
They want to
That's
hear you
all
in the
right.
back.
to bend over. It's like,
Okay. A few meetings ago, and I've been to plenty of them, it was brought up something about applications in general, if there's documentation. I don't know if you passed a resolution or if it was a suggestion that documents would be posted 10 days prior. Could you refresh that, please?
The resolution that was adopted by the board was requirement that planning reports, which generally have not come before this board, the planners come up on the night of the application and tell you what a wonderful applicable, that the application meets all of the various requirements under the municipal land use law. We have asked that when a planner is going to come and testify, that the applicant provide the planner's report at least 10 days in advance of his or her appearance before the board, so that the board and the public can be aware of the potential testimony, just like they are when Mr. Coyce or Mr. Maskey, et cetera, produce reports.
Okay, thanks.
I don't believe we have any planners tonight, so I think we're safe. And I think Mr. Ogrodnik's already provided, but.
Okay. Don't see any additional members from the public, so, you're coming up. All right.
Good evening, Niyati Shah, 3 Deer Run. And maybe these comments should have been part of the other meeting, but I wanted to say that, going forward, the litmus test for complete application should be a little bit higher. I think we've seen through the year, through various comments that people have made, certain reports, certain technical reports that have been submitted have been inaccurate. Science, engineering reports have been inaccurate. The community impact statements, where developers are stating that the community is going to receive X amount of dollars in benefit, X amount of dollars going to schools.
Nope. It's wrong.
Ma'am.
Talk about this. It's wrong. That statement is simply incorrect. I'm sorry. We've talked about this here at this meeting.
On a myriad of levels. Folks, I have heard multiple people tonight and other nights talk about determination of completeness. There is a completeness checklist and requirements under the municipal land use law that must be met before the planning department ultimately determines whether or not an application is complete. It is not uncommon. For many of you, it is uncommon because you have not sat through planning or zoning board meetings, like Ms. Gulliford, who spends her entire life here. It is not uncommon for people to submit reports and then change them, or submit revised reports throughout an application. It is not uncommon for the board's professionals to do so. It is not uncommon for the public to raise issues that the board then asks the applicant and/or the board professionals to address. The fact that applications go on interminably or seem to be incomplete is part, strangely enough, of the process. No with rare exception of maybe a 2-lot subdivision, there are very few applications that necessarily go through on one meeting unless they're relatively minor. And in my 23-year experience as this board attorney, I can tell you this is not unique for the current set of applications. So there are times there may be issues as to whether or not the application is deemed complete for purposes of coming before this board or the zoning board. But I will tell you it is not uncommon, and I represent several of them, it is not uncommon for applicants to be asked, for board professionals to be asked, for the board attorney to be asked to provide additional material that may change the entire situation of an application before the board. And as this public has heard on at least 2 of the applications, there have been intervening issues that have come about. That doesn't make the applications incomplete. They won't be determined incomplete because there are changes as the matter goes along. As for the community impact statement, with all due respect, the community impact statement is worth the paper it's printed on. The applicant comes forward and says to you, these are what will occur. It is not binding on this board. It is not required for this board to make a determination, and they are not necessarily required to follow them. And frankly, I understand people would like them to do so, but they don't. And it's unfortunate, but this is the way community impact statements have been dealt with since they came into effect 20-odd years ago. Nobody puts together an application where everybody puts together an application with no children. Doesn't matter what the application is, no children will come, and more money than will exist comes forward. And I haven't, in my experience, seen that to occur. And the fact, folks, that it exists, ultimately, the application will rise and fall, not on the community impact statement. It will rise and fall on various factors, engineering, stormwater, planning, and the like. The community impact statement is there because the municipal land use law allows for it to exist, but the legislature never gave it the teeth to have any impact.
So I understand that based on historical precedent, based on current existing law, that maybe all of these applications are deemed complete and that's why they're being heard. But I'd like to say that as we look to make things more efficient and save people time, make things accurate, that the bar should be higher. When you've got scientific professionals, when you've got people who are
Ma'am,
technical.
can I,
I'm sorry, can I
with all
finish
due
my
respect,
statement?
with all due respect, let me maybe address your point. Because, first of all, sometimes until the reports get on the record, it's unknown whether they're accurate or not. And it is one person's professional opinion that they're putting a report forward. And it's our job and our professionals' job to press those points. That's what we're, so.
Right.
Those reports are not necessarily a measure of deeming complete. There are items that must be present for things to be deemed complete. Whether they are accurate is what gets flushed out before this board through the applicant, through the professionals, through the public, etc. That's the standard. We can't raise the standard to make this perfect and have these things go on. Trust me, no one, I suspect, wants these items to be moved along more than the multiple volunteers who are currently sitting up there and the people sitting in the audience who are giving up their time, as well as the professionals. And I will point out, just for the record, the costs for the engineer and my office are generally paid for by the applicant, not by the taxpayers. And trust me, they want to move the application along too, because they don't want to see either one of us paid either.
Right. So, my comments are not about intent. They're not about dedication. They're not about commitment. They're just about if somebody's going to take the time to show up here, if somebody's going to take the time to call all these people here, then they should take the time to make sure that if they're submitting some kind of technical report, that they've done their due diligence, that it's been done right, and that,
But again, but their technical reports are based upon their opinion and their licensing. And if it's garbage, that will come out and that will reflect poorly on the application. But how do you challenge that the scientific data that the professional has put forward is garbage without putting it on the record and subjecting them to the questions?
right.
That's the point.
Agreed. But I'm saying that we should kick it back to them.
Either.
What's that?
It doesn't deem complete. You've talked about completeness shouldn't occur and then certain reports. Mr. Delcor has indicated what happens when these reports come through. They do not impact whether they are accurate or not, whether or not they necessarily deem the application complete. That's a separate set of criteria.
Completeness is a checklist. There are certain things that they have to, by law, provide that, both by law and by what our local requirements are. That deems completeness. The quality is a different issue, and that's to be flushed out during this process.
Yeah. I'm just saying that there should be some kind of repercussion, right? Because some of these errors are egregious and.
Well, I think the repercussion.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say the repercussion is the applicant who's paying the bill of the professional that's going to pay that professional a second time to get it right. So the applicant is being punished if his professionals
Well, there's
are
another
doing a
part
poor
to this.
job. So.
There's another part to this, right? Because as long as an application is being continued, right? If there's new legislation that's being passed at the federal level, at the state level, all that application counts as a grandfathered application. It doesn't count as a new application, right? Because if it gets, you're saying you can't reject it, you're saying you can't mark it as incomplete. Well, if there were repercussions to submitting technical reports that are not done properly, that are not done well with good quality, and you're kicking the application out, then this whole idea of grandfathering applications in, like allowing certain
But
things
that's
to
not
go
our,
through.
we don't grandfather them, that's law.
No, I'm just saying.
But you're, I understand
I'm
your
just
point,
saying, like-
but you're mixing
That wouldn't
apples and
matter if
oranges.
it got done the first time, it wouldn't, the new law wouldn't apply either. So that doesn't really
No, so
make a
if
difference
they
either way.
got it wrong the first time, you would kick it out, and then they'd have
Well,
to start
no,
all over
we
again.
would not, no, you're looking for denial, and
Right.
we wouldn't be taking a vote. We couldn't do that. We would tell them, go get it right, unless once they rest their case.
And this is what I was talking about in the earlier session. There are things that we have to do by law that when the application is submitted. And as much as the public may want us to just say, you know what, kick these guys out, we can't do that. And as much as you want it to be so, it's not so. And so we have to go by what the requirements of the MLUL dictate that we do.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bob Lacey, 37 Unca Drive. My question is about the traffic studies by the projects that you are working on. The Glen Gray brick factory property, you got about 180 homes, and then you have Roycebrook that you have about 170 homes, right? And each one of those properties the developers have done a traffic study, correct?
Yes.
All right, so each one, also the new applicants have done the same thing, correct?
Can't comment unless they've provided. I don't think we've heard really any traffic studies for any of the.
We've heard
You've
a
heard
couple of
some.
applicants
For the
that
warehouse?
have Studies,
Okay.
they'll be dealt with accordingly. at the
Right,
appropriate
they're
time.
scheduled, but we haven't, I don't think we've heard.
Has anybody ever done a comprehensive traffic study on
Well, I
all the
think-
projects?
The traffic studies do encompass the surrounding areas, from what I understand, and I do recall, I think, with the most recent one, M&M, correct me if I'm wrong, that I think when he had to redo that, he had to take in consideration.
So they measure all the traffic on the road existing when they do the traffic study.
Okay.
And then they impose or overlay what their impact would be on top of what is existing. That is their study.
And what is your study?
We don't do the study. They have to
You don't
provide.
have an engineering department that can do the study on top of all of them? Combine the whole package?
Our professionals review the work that's submitted by the applicant. That's what they do.
That's all. All you look at is just what the applicant submits.
Correct.
And you don't take it as a general for the community, the whole township. So you got what, 4 or 5 warehouses, plus you have 2 home developments? You're not taking that all in consideration in traffic study?
Well,
You're
they're
taking
not.
just piece by piece?
Each application has to be reviewed in conjunction with the traffic studies that are submitted, are reviewed by the engineer relative to not only the studies they provide, but what else has been put on the record before such. Do we do a township-wide traffic study every time an application comes in? No. Do we have it reviewed for purposes of whether or not the traffic study provided takes into account not only what they're providing, but the ongoing traffic around it? Yes, we do take that into account. Or at least our engineers take it into account.
When was the last time that you built a road through Hillsborough? Not the bypass, road.
When we built it, when the township has built a road?
Yeah.
There's no dispute exactly what the roadway system is.
Okay,
The
so,
committee knows it, the public knows it. The applicants come in and tell you the appropriate things they tell. We deal with it on each and every level and try to address it accordingly. But I'll also point out, sir, that on more than one occasion over the years, this board has turned down applications and/or tried to amend applications on Route 206 and been told by the state DOT what we could do with it, including trying to limit turns, reduce speeds and the like, and the state tells you it's our, and with all due respect to the commissioner who's sitting out in the audience, the same thing goes with the county. The county makes those ultimate determinations. Sorry, Paul. Those county makes its determinations on county roads. We only have jurisdiction over township roads.
Okay, I understand, and this seems like it's this is a pre-recorded session.
Yeah, I mean, the issue from a traffic, if your comment is that we should take into consideration traffic from the surrounding, I can assure you, we try to understand that.
Okay, that's what I want to know, but can you, I guess the community would like to know that if it is, how much weight does it really carry?
Traffic studies,
Depends on the application.
well, I'm going to say traffic studies in general carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, but as just by the project.
By the project, but again, as I explained, it's, the traffic study is, the project, the applicant is not just talking about their contribution. They have to take into consideration the traffic that's surrounding them and even approvals that haven't been built yet. Mr. Bernstein, that's correct?
They have to at least be aware of them.
Right. So even there may be an applicant that's been approved but hasn't been developed, the applicant, if that is adjacent to their property or development, they've got to take into consideration the contributing future factor of that development.
Okay.
So there is a regional
Just
approach.
curious, because every time I come to a meeting about an applicant, the only traffic study was just what the applicant was presenting. Nothing as an overall for the township. And I think everybody here, but as I heard one lady about Amwell Road, is a dangerous road. It's very traffic.
The commissioner's there, that's a county road. So.
Well, it's a county road, but it goes through Hillsborough. I mean, if you look at the only way that even these warehouses are gonna have tractor trailers.
Well, we can't comment on anything on Amwell Road.
Traffic's only gonna go through Amwell, Millstone River Road to get to 287. So, thank you.
We'll take each application as they come.
Right.
Thank you.
Maria Janusik. I just want to go back to something that Ms. Shaw had said about the applications. There was a letter addressed to Mr. Sirachi, the chairman, and it was from the Environmental Commission, from the commissioner, Mr. Foley. And he stated in this letter that the data for a stormwater study was clearly fabricated. I mean, that's simply
I think you mentioned this last year.
straightforward.
I know, this is very familiar, and again,
Yes.
the Environmental Commission is an advisory board. We take their reports into consideration, very strong consideration, and we will utilize that in our cross-examination of the applicant.
But it doesn't change the deeming complete.
I understand, but when it says clearly fabricated, that
Is-
would mean that
That's
someone-
again,
that
that's-
someone should have looked at it. I think we have a board engineer who should have caught that.
Well,
And instead,
no.
and
Fir-
instead,
first-
and
first of-
instead-
first of all,
it was
that hasn't
caught
been
by the
determined.
Environmental Commission.
Ms. Janusik, that is an opinion of a member of the Environmental Commission. We will deal with it in the appropriate time and in the appropriate manner, and we said that last year when you brought it up. And the application isn't any further along now than it was then.
How can that be called an opinion when the man looked at the
Okay.
tests and said?
Ms. Janusik, I have to, Ms. Janusik, I have to cut, I have to stop because that's an active application.
Fabricated.
There is no comment.
Okay, now, I just wanted to get a definitive answer from Attorney Bernstein, because when I asked about the verbatim transcript, Attorney Bernstein said that would be provided, then he qualified it with something about whenever it's ready. When would
Yes.
that
Mr.
be
Bern,
available?
okay, I will handle this. Mr. Bernstein does not produce the transcript. It comes from our stenographer. Gets sent to his office for their review, and when it's deemed, acceptable, passes it to the township planning office, who will then post it to the civic clerk website. That's the process.
So would that be available prior to the public hearing of that application?
If the transcript has been provided from a
If-
previous meeting, the answer will be yes.
Okay, is there a requirement according to the municipal legal?
There is no requirement, and not
A
for,
verbatim transcript of a public hearing?
No,
no.
Actually, it's in the township code, because I asked for it 23 years ago, in order to get application resolutions as close to possibly being an issue, not being an issue, as possible. But the municipal land use law does not require verbatim transcripts for anything. The only people that actually require a verbatim transcript is a court on an appeal. That's who requires verbatim transcripts.
So public hearings before the board do not require a copy?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
I was at 2 planning board meetings where there was an issue as to whether something was done legally according to the requirements of the municipal land use law. And what was ultimately decided was that let the board allow the applicant to go forward and take their chances in case, it wasn't really done the right way and someone could now take them to court. So that was the solution, was to allow the applicant to go forward and take his chances. I think it should be stated definitely whether it was done legally or not, because now the applicant's got his attorneys and they can afford it, but someone whose rights were violated, it's going to cost a lot of money to go through the courts. So I don't think that that's a really good solution, is to allow the applicant to decide, am I going to go forward?
Whose rights were violated?
Excuse me?
Whose rights were violated?
Property owner who said that something was done in wasn't done properly.
That's not that's not a rights violation. They disagreed with a decision. Yes, sir. And that's an active application.
But the question was whether it was done legally.
Okay, it's an active application. I'm going to just cut it down because it's an active application.
Very quick for the public, more from Ms. Janusek. We give opinions, lawyers give opinions. They are not necessarily the opinions the courts necessarily agree with. And yes, sometimes it is not uncommon to say to an applicant, we think you've got an issue here. You may or may not take it at your own risk. That's your call. But ultimately, at some point, somebody in a black robe is going to make a determination if it comes before them. Not necessarily a board. I'm not going to go into the issue of what did or did not occur. I'm just saying to you, it is not uncommon to be heard. It happens.
Okay, except that maybe if there's something can be more qualified under some kind of law, that it
Ms.
should be.
Janusek, we provide opinions to the clients. The clients are not bound by the opinions. And God knows, in 40 years of practice, I've been told by more than one client what I could do with my opinion, including when I was right. So it is an opinion. Clients do with them as they wish. If I could impose, just like Mr. Ogrodnik and boards he represents could simply impose our will on all of us, we would have been out of here about an hour and a half ago. But we don't get to impose our will. We get to give advice. That's what we do. So that's about as best you're going to get.
And I don't want to mention a name, but there was an attorney for an applicant who stood up.
Then don't.
Ms. Janusek, please provide just comments to the board and not rehash last year's stories, please.
I'm not rehashing.
Yes.
I'm allowed to make a comment, yes?
You've made the comment numerous times last year.
This is what the comment is.
And it's a repeat.
This is what the comment is. No.
It's a repeat.
No. There was an attorney for the applicant who stood up and was very frustrated and made the statement, there's never been this level of scrutiny before.
Ma'am, was it before?
And so this is very good that there are people here
Was it before this board? Was it before this board?
Yes.
An
Yes.
applicant said that before this board?
Not the applicant, the attorney for the applicant. There's never been this level of scrutiny before, and I'm not the only one who heard it. Thank you.
That's good, right?
That's good.
You should be.
We're doing our job.
It's very good, but I'm saying that the attorney was very frustrated and upset by that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Close public, please.
All right, I'm closing public. We're going to move on because it's almost 9 o'clock. How you doing, Mike?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I don't want to stop.
Weren't asking if you wanted to stop. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearing. 303 Amwell LLC, file number 21-PV-17-MSPV. Time of decision is the end of this month. The application's continued from the September 8th, 2022 meeting with notice. And Mr. Gorodnik, I'm just going to turn the floor to you.
Good morning, members of the board and members.
Mr. Chair.
My name is Mike Ogrodnik. I'm an attorney at Sabo Shaw Law Firm in Somerville. I represent the applicant, 303 Amwell Road LLC. We were here back in September for the first hearing. This is an application for an industrial building. We hear the words, the bad word warehouse being thrown around pretty often in this town, but I want to make it clear in the onset that this is for an industrial building.
Mr. Chair, I'm recused from this hearing.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Let the record reflect, Committeeman Chickarelli, pardon me, has left the dais and recused himself.
So this application contemplates an 85,438 square foot industrial building consisting of 81,108 square feet of industrial space, 4,330 square feet of internal office space. This property is located, of course, on Amwell Road in the Corporate Development Zone, CDZ zone, on the north side of Amwell Road near the landing. It's bordered by the north by the township-owned Mindell Tract, on the east by a house, tree service business, recycling business, and on the west by a house and vacant land. By email dated August 10th, 2021, some time ago, Planning Director David Maskey indicated to the applicant's engineer that the, quote, warehousing is considered a light industrial use, close quote.
So it is a warehouse?
No, just setting up the record here. We filed this application approximately 524 days ago. The application was deemed complete, and we received a formal planning memorandum dated July.
No, you don't.
If I might.
No.
July 25th.
No, what you get to do, Mr. Berlin, is put for on the record you're an objector to the application for the moment. Thank you. Just indicate for the record you're here, and then I'll let Mr. Ogrodnik go further. You don't get to object.
Well, do we want to?
Microphone.
The microphone, please.
You might as well stay close to it.
Finish your statement first.
Sorry, Michael, my mistake. I should have wanted Mr. Berlin for the record. Mr. Berlin, as for the record, indicate your name and what you're an objector.
My name is Craig Berlin, and I'm an objector to 303 Amwell. I live at 1 Allshouse Street in Hillsborough.
Thank you. Mr. Ogrodnik.
There was a formal planning memorandum dated July 25th, 2022, and under subsection 3, Mr. Maskey stated 3, under use standards, open quote, warehousing and office space is permitted as a conditional use under light industrial in the CDZ district, close quote. In fact, in the township's light industrial district, under paragraph 7, indicates, quote, warehousing, shipping, and receiving located complete within an enclosed building is a, close quote, is a permitted principal use. We also, I think it's important for the public to understand that as we sit here today, warehousing is permitted principal use in various zonings in the town. We've been building warehouses for many, many years, including the 05 district zone, the I-1, the I-2, the I-3, and as we'll get to, was previously considered to be a permitted principal use in this zone, the CDZ zone. For purposes of this application, we've reviewed both the planning and engineering review memorandum, and we've completed a substantial redesign of the project after hearing comments from the board at the September 8th hearing. Relief was previously identified for make-ready spaces. We've eliminated that variance. One of the main concerns, both from the public and the Environmental Commission, was the tree mitigation, tree removal. We were at 61.1%. And after review and after moving some things around, working with the township professionals and our civil engineer, we've redesigned the site plan to fully comply with the requirement and eliminate the variance to achieve the tree clearance of 58.1%. So that's another variance that's been eliminated. We've also eliminated design waivers with respect to parking aisle width and parking space dimensions. There's one design waiver for a sign that's on the side of the building where 40 square feet is required. It's proposed and 10 square feet is required, however. And I would note that this sign is several hundred feet from the roadway, but we're going to defer to the board and eliminate that waiver if the board so desires. And we still have several design waivers related to lighting, both under lighting the site and exceeding the foot candles at the entrance in the loading dock area. I'll have my civil engineer detail that. There's a pipeline crossing. We spent much of last hearing talking about the pipeline crossing. We don't believe that any relief is necessary for that. The standard is that the applicant argues or demonstrates that that's the only reasonable way to provide access, which we went through, and but that would eliminate that waiver relief. The applicant also eliminated the grading within the buffer. We had some discussions with the EC about an isolated ordinary resource wetland feature on the southern portion of the property. We've redesigned our site. We've added some detention or retention walls, and we've eliminated any encroachment, a non-permitted encroachment within that enhanced 150-foot stream corridor. With these site plans and amendments that were provided well in anticipation of tonight's hearing, we've eliminated all variances, and we're fully conforming with the CDZ zone standards. With me tonight, I have Greg Reddington. Greg Reddington is the principal of the applicant. He's also a licensed engineer. We have John Manilio, who's from Mantera. He's our civil engineer on this project. We also have Roberto Martinez, our architect. We have Kyle Kopaz, who's our geotechnical expert from Whitestone. And ultimately, we will have Matt Flynn and John McDonough, our professional planners. So going to try to go a little bit out of order because I want Mr. Reddington, who's the principal and owner of this property, to explain some of the questions that we've had discussions with Mr. Coyce and Mr. Bernstein regarding the anticipated intensity uses on the site. And I would ask that we swear in our witnesses, and I'd like to provide Mr. Reddington as our first fact witness.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Ogrodnik went through a recitation of issues, and he left one out. On December 29th of last year, the zoning officer provided an opinion which has been provided to the entire board, to Mr. Ogrodnik, and I believe is posted on Civic Clerk, which indicates it is her opinion that in this zone, warehousing is not a permitted use within the zone, that it is not permitted nor is it a conditional use, and that the recommendation, because it is not a permitted nor conditional use, this board has no jurisdiction to hear the application. If the applicant wants to bring a warehouse in this zone, it requires what they call a use variance, which is set forth under 4055D 70D. And the zoning board, according to the municipal land use law, is the only board upon which that variance may be heard under the jurisdiction. Therefore, there is a question as to whether or not this application may go forward in its current situation as it's currently constituted based on the recommendation and the opinion of Ms. McLaughlin. I'm assuming that Mr. Ogrodnik will have comments contrary to same. He sort of set some of it up earlier. And I also assume that Mr. Berlin, who is in possession of said opinion, may also have his own comments before we get to the issue of whether or not this application goes forward tonight.
I would just say that the applicant intends to construct a building that's fully conforming with the zoning. The zoning, as it stands right now, light industrial is a permitted permitted conditional use, and this applicant meets all the bulk standards of the conditional use. Unfortunately, now that the township, after approximately a year and a half or more, really, has reinterpreted the permitted uses in the CDZ zone, we're left with some ambiguity with respect to the definition of light industrial. And that is light industrial it's a zoning district, but it doesn't have a definition under the ordinance. So there, as we sit here today, there's not a definition of light industrial. I will say that warehousing is permitted in light industrial in your other light industrial zone. Not that that's particularly relevant in the CDZ zone. But we're looking to move forward with this application. We're not looking to go to the Board of Adjustment. But we do need to have a discussion on the permitted uses under light industrial since it's not defined. I would offer perhaps a learned treatise, the Moskowitz book, which is what often planners use. And I'm just going to read it. It defines light industry as industrial uses engaged in light manufacturing, packaging, storage, distribution of products, included warehousing, wholesaling, and shipping and receiving, scientific research and training, kennel and animal hospitals, new vehicle storage, and vehicle transportation service establishments. We disagree with the Webster Merriam definition of light industry, which I don't think is particularly helpful in Ms. McLaughlin's memorandum. But I think what's important for this board to be reminded of, just like every single application that we have with Mr. Reddington, is that we are attempting to build permitted uses with as variance-free permitted uses as we can. So while there may be some ambiguity as we sit here today as to the definition of light industrial, we will work with this board and Mr. Coyce to try to firm up what that means, what uses that encompasses. It's a little unusual because we're here, well into this application after understanding and designing the project as a permitted warehouse use. But the applicant is not, is ready to have a discussion about light industrial and what that encompasses. So I think Mr. Reddington could probably, as an experienced developer, builder, engineer of industrial buildings, would have appropriate input as to what is anticipated for this project. But right now, we're asking for approval without variances to construct the building as it's proposed, with some understanding there's some ambiguity with respect to the definition of light industrial.
Well, it's light industrial versus warehouse, or if they're one and the same, which sounds like that's perhaps your position. That
Not
warehouse?
necessarily, but it's difficult for
Well,
me
you're
to-
saying warehouse is permitted use. That's your opinion, that it's a permitted use
Well,
in light industrial.
I would say that it was reasonable for the applicant to rely upon a planning director in an interpretation of his own ordinance. And if you read it, it seems clear to me that the warehousing use is permitted. But again, we're not here to fight with the town. We're here to present an application that's fully conforming in the CDC zone.
Right.
That's our intent.
Right, but it's starting to sound like, based on what Mr. Bernstein said, is whether or not we have jurisdiction. So I think
Well, I think the board,
We
Mr.
need-
Berlin is a recognized
Yes.
objector on the
And I'd like to-
application, if he has anything he wishes to say as to this issue.
I think we just spent some time going over that applications come in with things that are wrong. And your job is to make them right. And that's what the township planning board, the zoning board is doing. They're making it right. In my opinion, it's not in that book. But the planning board, the zoning board had ideas of what the CDZ zone should be. And it should not be disruptive to the residences that are around it. It should fit in and it should be sort of a bridge as to what goes on. I'd also like to mention, there's got to be at least 100 documents, including the narrative for this, that say it's a warehouse. I don't know how we can say it's not a warehouse now. And I think all of that has to be refiled. And I would like to see this go to the zoning board, because they have a better grip on this. This was not a callous decision. I read it, I read your memo. I can't tell you that you're absolutely wrong, but I believe that you took something out of context, and I saw that Mr. Maskey answered you. What you provided in answer was one line. Warehousing is an approved use or a permitted use in the zone, in the light industrial zone. But this isn't light industrial zone. This is the CDZ zone. And I'm gonna call on the township to settle this all and to go by the rules. And if the township is telling me that it's wrong, I have to accept that it's wrong and it needs to be taken further. I ask that the application be thrown out because it is not a permissible use and the town has told me so, and whatever they have to do to take that step farther, that's fine. But as of right now, that's where we stand. There's a rather extensive explanation. It's not a one line. It's an extensive explanation as to why they made their decision the way they did. And I think that it bears the thought of throwing this out. If it's not a warehouse, then your application for a warehouse is no good.
I just want to, for the record, state that the planning memorandum under the use standards indicate, it's not just an email pre-application when we're designing the project. It's in the official planning memorandum, and it interprets the permitted uses in the CDZ zone to include the warehousing use. But again, I think we're getting off topic here because...
That's not for me to argue with you. You have to do that with someone who's qualified to do so. However, I do know that even in the traffic studies and everything like that, you ran your numbers based on a warehouse. I think it was the wrong kind of warehouse for some of these applications, but whatever it was, you ran it as a warehouse. You presented this as a warehouse, and you missed.
No. On December 28th, the township reversed their interpretation. We didn't miss. We relied upon the planning director's interpretation of his ordinance.
I think you need to take that up with the zoning board. I can't give you relief from that.
Well, I'm not asking for relief from you.
I understand.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Unless Mr. Coy says something he'd like to add. There are basically 4 options right now before the board.
Mike, please.
There are basically 4 options before this board. Ms. McLaughlin has rendered a zoning officer's opinion pursuant to the municipal land use law, which the applicant does not concur with. One option available to them is to file an appeal of the zoning officer's determination before the zoning board pursuant to NJSA 40:55D 70 sub A within 20 days after her decision. We are still within the 20 days. Mr. Ogrodnik can seek an opinion whether or not Ms. McLaughlin's opinion is in fact accurate. Item number 2 is that Mr. Ogrodnik's client can ask for this application to be continued to a date subsequent where we attempt to try to see if we can potentially work out the issue of a possible conforming application. The third is that the board can decide that they concur with Ms. McLaughlin's determination and therefore believe that there is no jurisdiction before this board, because if there is a jurisdictional issue, it will come up quite probably on an appeal as to whether or not this board had the jurisdiction or didn't have the jurisdiction to hear the application in the first place. And Mr. Ogrodnik and his client can address that accordingly. Or, the other option is to withdraw the application voluntarily and submit a conforming application in accordance with Ms. McLaughlin's opinion in conjunction with conversations with the planning department and the like going forward. Those are the 4 options.
So I just want to be sure the zoning officer's, I'm going to call it report or opinion, is officially part of the record right now, or do we need to cite it?
It's officially part of the record. It's been submitted, it has been distributed as part of this application.
Scoyce, anything want to state summarizing at a high level?
So when I took on this application as the interim planning director, one of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that the zoning officer had a decision, had an opportunity to evaluate it. And as you could see from her response, I gave her direction to take a look at it and to make sure and make a determination as the zoning official. And through the municipal land use law, the zoning official has that jurisdiction in order to do so. So without going any further, that's where I wanted to focus on before this went anywhere else. And so without adding anything else, that's I believe her memo stands on its own with the merits that are in there. There are administrative remedies available, as Mr. Bernstein had stated, administrative remedies that exist in the municipal land use law, from an appeal to an interpretation. Would like to also note that the way that our zoning ordinance is designed, as many are, when uses are not expressly permitted, they are prohibited. The zoning officers are trained to that when essentially it's not clear, it is better to deny. So when you do doubt, you would deny, because there are administrative remedies available to an applicant in order to go to other places, such as the Zoning Board of Adjustment, to seek relief.
And I know she used, I guess, a different source for definitions. How does that, from an industry practice, is the source considered?
A common practice for a zoning officer is to use the common definition. And when, one could argue that there are lots of other sources for definitions, but again, zoning officers are trained to look at the common definition. Where it gets a little bit difficult is there are other definitions that could be very specialized, come from other different resources. So there could be some, opinions as to which definition should they rely upon. Common, though, would be interpreted by the zoning officer that's citing it, in that the general public would have an opportunity as how they might potentially understand it. And I respect the opinion that our zoning official came to. And again, all zoning officers basically practice that principle of to doubt is to deny, and there are opportunities for an applicant to seek relief.
I would just comment that I strongly disagree with Ms. McLaughlin's definition, and I'm going to read it because I think it's really self-evident for anybody that's done any type of planning and zoning why this misses the mark. Quote, light industry, the production of small goods that will be sold to the people who use them rather than to another manufacturer. E.g., the clothing manufacturer was looking to relocate to a town that allows light industries. I would say that is certainly not a common definition of light industrial as we look at the context of planning and zoning. So I would very strongly disagree that a Merriam-Webster dictionary of light industry has really any relation to, the nomenclature and the verbiage of a light industrial zone, which again is defined in your ordinance as a zoning district. It's not defined as under the definition section. But I don't think those are the four options. I mean, I certainly agree that an appeal to the Zoning Board of Adjustment is an option. I certainly agree that we can adjourn or withdraw and we file. I think what I had said to Mr. Bernstein is in my email to him that we are comfortable proceeding as a light industrial use. However, that's not particularly defined at this moment, but we have a design of a building that's fully conforming. And I believe that we can work through this application perhaps by discussing similar uses, perhaps by discussing parameters on the use that would provide, let's say, a reasonable definition of light industrial. We certainly don't want to start over again. They called me almost going on 3 years ago when it was only Susan at the hearings. We've built many industrial buildings. We've built many warehouse buildings. And after Ida, we've certainly seen an uptick in public participation. But as we sit here 523 days into this application, 24 days, I don't think it would be appropriate to withdraw the application. It should be amended. It can be amended on the record. And we'll work towards providing testimony that would give sufficient examples of light industrial uses.
I don't know if you have an answer for this yet. Obviously, we have the plan. The plan in the front states warehouse, but you're now coming in front of us saying it quote unquote light industrial, but do you have a tenant or a business for this property already?
We have potential tenants, and I think that's important. It's important to recognize where we are. Well, first of all, the applicant had to negotiate a contract to purchase the property. They then had to design the property, and now we're a year and a half into the application. Compliance in Hillsborough after an application is approved regularly takes a year or more. Then you have to build the building, inspect it, permitting, COs. So no, the applicant doesn't have a tenant that's willing to maybe lease a warehouse in 6 years.
I guess I understand that, but for us to understand a light industrial use, there's really no way for us to understand what the use would be. And therefore, we have to evaluate it on the mic. Sorry, we have to evaluate it on what it's perceived to be, potentially. So, in the CDZ zone, as stated by Ms. McLaughlin, it's a true warehouse isn't really what is supposed to be in that zone. It's supposed to be more office parks, transitional light industrial. It would be light manufacturing, where it's obviously a less impactful area in a lot of ways. But looking at the plan, though, it fits the room variance-free, as you said. The elephant in the room is that it's a big open box. So, right, that's where the rubber kind of meets the road for us to make a decision as to where we send this.
I would just ask to have some dialogue from my witness if we could swear in Mr. Reddington.
Before we swear Mr. Reddington in, the desire of the board, whether they want to hear Mr. Reddington's testimony, or whether you want to make a decision on the underlying issue of the jurisdiction. The question I'm concerned about is I'm not so sure this testimony is going to give the board any more understanding of jurisdiction because you don't have a plan.
Right.
And whether it's variance, I know Mr. Ogrodnik likes to remind you all that everything that comes before you is variance-free. That doesn't make it approvable. It just makes, it doesn't require variances. And it limits the planner's testimony. It doesn't make the application doesn't assume to a new level. So if Mr. Ogrodnik believes that there are ways to address this item without the board coming to a decision on jurisdiction at this time, one option is for Mr. Ogrodnik and his client to continue this application to a future date and see what can be resolved, if any, as to what the parties might be able to consider to be a light industrial use for consideration by the board and any people who have comments about the application at a time in the future. But this application, as it's before you, is not light industrial. It's the analogous to the penguin. It walks like a duck, it talks like a duck. It doesn't make it a penguin just because I say it's so. It's been advertised as a warehouse, it's been described as a warehouse, it's been discussed as a warehouse, it's been argued that the warehouse is a permitted use. That doesn't make it light industrial. I appreciate the applause. I don't get it at home, but I don't need it here. So the ball is ostensibly in Mr. Reddington's court, which is how do they want to leave it? If they want this to still be considered by this board, the most appropriate situation is to continue the application. There happens to be an open date, strangely enough, on the calendar, except I believe Mr. Ogrodnik is not available, so that's why it's an open date on the calendar, because we're all going on vacation that week. So the issue becomes whether or not that is an option they wish to engender.
Or
If
if we make a decision.
If the board wants to
please.
hear Mr. Reddington's testimony for what it's worth, or this board can make a decision that you don't have the jurisdiction to hear it and punt it to the zoning board, and let's see where the chips fall. So,
I'd like to point out that the zoning board said that it belongs before them.
no, the zoning board, the zoning.
The zoning
board has not
officer.
made any decision, Mr. Berlin.
That's not what I read. I'm assuming
The zoning officer.
The zoning officer, it's not the zoning
Who is an
board.
employee of the planning department, not a member of the zoning board.
They
Has
said
rendered, she has rendered a decision that says, this board does not have jurisdiction. For the zoning board, the Board of Adjustment, to have that jurisdiction, this board has to indicate it does not belong before there and sends Mr. Ogrodnik off to the zoning board relative to this application. What he does with that at that point is up to him and his client. There are options available. But the zoning board has rendered no opinion on this application whatsoever because it's not before them. It's before this board.
I mean, I think short of since you don't have an app or a tenant, as it's been mentioned before, we don't know what's.
I can answer all these questions if I can just please have the floor.
I see the board.
Well, you're not an objector. He has the floor.
Please sit down, because they got the cameras that they can't see here in the way. Thank you.
And Mr. Berlin right now is the only recognized objector in this situation.
I think it calls for a vote from the board. I think that there's enough here to stop this where it is and to stop tying up the courts with this thing. We've been looking at a warehouse application, and now we're trying to get talked into the fact that it is a warehouse. I'm still up in the air on this. I don't know, we've been told it's light industrial, yet at the beginning of Mr. Ogrodnik's oratory tonight, he was saying it is a warehouse, and a warehouse is it's an allowable use of the land. So
I'm going to object. That's misstating the record. I did not say that. I did not say that.
Okay, so Mr. Grant, is this a warehouse?
It's a light industrial use. And that's what's permitted according to the zoning, according to the latest interpretation of the zoning that was just changed. So obviously we can't redesign a project when we get 11 days notice after 520 days that the use is no longer permitted. Whether the board is bound by prior interpretations is another question perhaps for the courts. This applicant is willing to proceed as an amended application for a permitted use. I don't know how, I don't understand how that would be objectionable to proceed with a permitted use. Yes, it's not defined as we sit here today.
So how can this board then make that decision to go forward?
Well,
I'm just wondering if the best option was to adjourn this to a future date and have everyone, come to terms as to what is this light industrial going to be. I think as the mayor pointed out, we have an empty box right now. And, empty boxes seem to suggest large-scale storage.
So I can answer all these questions. If I could please just say a few words. I'm not going to impose anything. I want to be able to have my right to say something.
I just want to get, if we were to allow him just a few minutes, does that give? Hey.
Excuse me, please.
I'm asking my attorney a question. Please let me finish. Does that bound this board to continue hearing that as though we are sort of acknowledging we have jurisdiction?
I'm concerned that while Mr. Reddington may want to provide you, Mr. Reddington may want to provide you in all due regard, I can't get any closer to the mic. I don't have the luxury of pulling it off. I'm concerned that it really doesn't particularly matter. What's before the board are the plans and designs of the application before the board and what's been provided on Civic Clerk. And while Mr. Remington may believe that there are ways to interpret it, I don't believe they conform with the application. And it's the application that governs here, not necessarily the desire or the interpretation of it at the moment. We may end up in a situation where they meet, but I don't think we're necessarily here at this moment. And I don't necessarily think the testimony is going to make it any better.
It
is
will.
what is.
I promise it will.
Mr.
Just give me a few
Remington?
moments, please.
Mr. Chairman, can I request a 5-minute recess?
I think that's appropriate. We'll reconvene about 20 of. Okay, we're back in session. Okay. Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay.
Chair, start.
All right. So, at this point, I don't think we're comfortable with being the jurisdiction. And more importantly, I know that you'd like to say some words, but I think that could give or suggest that we have accepted jurisdiction. And I don't want to take that risk at this point, because I think there was enough in the zoning officer's memo to suggest otherwise. My understanding is, the former planning director made a zoning decision or may have made an interpretation without consulting the zoning officer at that time. So I think the two best options at this point, and I will leave it up to you, Mr. Grodnick, is to whether or not to appeal the zoning officer's interpretation in front of the zoning board, or to carry this hearing so that you can have more private discussions with Mr. Bernstein with regards to this light industrial use. Situation, right.
So I would just like to say something. Do I need to be sworn in, or can I just talk?
Mr. Remington, we are not going to.
We're not going to swear you in, sorry.
All right, well.
Mr. Grodnick needs to speak on your behalf.
Okay, so can you please tell him? They can bounce at the same time. Just because they hear, listen to what I say doesn't mean they own this application. No, not this one.
Correct.
I'm asking for, I'm okay with this letter. I want to just get approval for the CC zone and have us sit down. I'm not.
Mr. Grodnick, do you want a few minutes with your client?
No, I'm not pushing for a warehouse. This warehouse is not what this is about.
What would be a potential return date for another night of hearing for this application?
Well, actually, you control that piece. Since you're pretty much got the calendar for the next 4 months. You want to put it off in 90 days? Early April?
Well, that's actually a good question. If the applicant agrees voluntarily,
I don't believe their voluntary agreement is necessarily, I don't believe that a voluntary agreement that this board has jurisdiction is necessarily binding on this board or removes the possible appeal issue of whether or not this board ever had jurisdiction. Because while the applicant may choose to waive their jurisdictional issues, it doesn't mean that Mr. Berlin, for the sake of or anybody else is going to waive it in a potential contest if the application doesn't go the way somebody likes it. I'm not so sure that you're necessarily going to be able to bind your client in an appeal.
if the applicant agrees to voluntarily remove warehousing as a principal use, then this board would have jurisdiction as light industrial.
It's quite possible, depending on what the application is, but it's not before this board at this moment. You've got a warehouse application before this board. You may call it something different, but it's a warehouse application. If your client wants to have the board reconsider this application, amended with a different use, then my suggestion is, and I think the chairman offered it up, is to postpone tonight's hearing, carry it for a period of time, and see what we can come up with. And come back before the board.
Okay. I think that's appropriate. I mean, it's just,
My suggestion.
it's not the applicant's fault, though, that,
I'm not-
you know, we just,
wait,
after a year and a half, we just received this
Mr. O'Brien,
determination.
First of all, the application has not been pending for a year and a half. It's been pending for less than a year. But leaving that aside, no one at the moment is assigning fault to your client or to you. So I wouldn't go looking for the situation at hand. I believe that you're back before here on another application on April the 6th. That the parties will have discussions and hopefully we'll at least be able to advise the board where we are or whether we have an amended application, et cetera, before that application.
Now, is
And your client would agree to at least extend time of decision to April 30th.
the township intending to undertake a definition of light industrial, or is the township looking, and things like warehousing and other things that are undefined, or is the township looking to proceed with that ambiguity?
I think the township is looking to explore all potential options, i.e. whether it does it by township ordinance or whether it could potentially come to some kind of understanding with the applicant vis-a-vis what it is and let the application then go forward as it so applies. Doesn't mean that that the people in the audience or the objector are necessarily going to agree, or that the application will ultimately be approved, but it won't contain warehousing.
My question is, do we have enough to take a vote? Because I don't believe that the board has the jurisdiction to come to a decision on this.
The board has the jurisdiction, Mr. Berlin, if Mr. Ogrodnik's client agrees to continue this application in its current form, depending upon whether or not there's an amended plan.
So it stands right now in its current form, obviously.
It stands in its current form as to whether or not they want to go forward with an amended plan at some point in the future and ask for continuance of this application.
Understood.
You want to take a few minutes, Mr. Ogrodnik?
No, I think we're comfortable in requesting an adjournment to allow the applicant to amend the application to a permitted light industrial use. Also to work with Mr. Coyce and Mr. Bernstein to define light industrial.
For purposes of this application.
Well, perhaps for purposes of,
Well, minimally for purposes of this
Yeah.
application.
yeah. And, you know, we need to have a definition for warehousing and accessory uses.
The committee, that's separate issues for the committee to address, and the mayor is here.
Can you clarify for me what working with the planning board consists of? Isn't it the
Working with
responsibility
the
of the applicant to come
Working with
something?
working with the applicant, with the township professionals vis-a-vis whether or not there is an application which may fall more accurately or apparently within the definition that applies to this zone and this property. That doesn't bind anybody except that they come back before here and the word's warehouse and the building isn't a warehouse and there's more definition to it and the like. Doesn't stop you from disagreeing with it, doesn't stop the public from disagreeing, doesn't stop the board from turning it down.
Understood. Thank you. I just wanted to
But this application as it currently exists, we're looking to move from.
Or he has the right to go to the zoning board.
Or he has the right to go to the zoning board, he has the right to go to court.
Right.
That's up to the applicant. But the jurisdiction issue at the moment is not addressed one way or the other. We may come to the point where it can't be agreed upon and we're right back to where we are some period of time later.
So, Mr. Granick, sounds like you're looking to carry this till April 6th and extending the time of decision to the end of April?
Yes.
Okay, and then I guess at some point you'll, with Mr. Coyce, to reschedule the other scheduled application.
No, that application will stay
They'll
on
stay?
where it is. Mr. Ogrodnik will be aware with.
Might be limited time.
Who's on that? I forget who's on that.
It's
I'd like to amend the,
Which one is on? I'm losing. It's been a
Yeah.
It's
long night,
It is.
It's Homestead Road LLC.
Thank you.
which I believe is another one. Is it Homestead Road or Homestead
No,
279?
Homestead Road.
That's a separate application. You're gonna have to work it out with the clients. We're gonna leave them both on for the moment. They'll have to work amongst the two of them as to where they are. You know where Mr. Ogrodnik will be.
Can I ask a quick question? Because I believe this application was going to go back to the Environmental Commission in January.
we're before the Environmental Commission on February 24th. They revised the date because they wanted, EC wants to do a site walk to look at the isolated wetlands as well as the
We
debris.
may have other things for the Environmental Commission. The Environmental Commission may have its own suggestions.
Right.
by
So
then.
does this dialogue affect that?
No.
Not at the moment, unless
Okay.
it's something different for the Environmental Commission to consider by then.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Application, still the application.
Right. Okay, so that's still on track.
I mean, we were asked to come back.
Right.
It's, again, relatively unusual to appear before the EC multiple occasions, but we've agreed to voluntarily do a site walk with our professionals in the EC as well as reappear to address comments made in their, I think, September memorandum.
Right. So as it stands right now, that's on for February 12th.
24th.
24th.
It's that Monday. I think it's the 24th.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Based upon the applicant's
Request.
request, the proposal is to carry this application without further notice to April the 6th, 2023 at 7 o'clock or soon thereafter the matter may be heard.
Time of decision.
Extension of time of decision. Actually, we have one through June 30th.
No, we already have it. Okay. Good. So just so that the public understands that with this particular application, there will not be notice, unlike the others that we had voted on earlier, that there would be noticed. But as of this point, the other application that's scheduled on April 6th has not been canceled or moved at this point. Okay.
Just ask Mr. Coyce to, even if I'm not going to be there, to just, we'll talk about Homestead Road and that missing day. I can have my colleague cover, because I know that is another application that's been
We'll
pending.
cross that bridge
Okay.
at the next meeting.
Okay.
I need a motion, a second, and a vote.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion from the board? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Beeson?
Yes.
Mr. Belcour?
Yes.
Mr. Scobo?
Yes.
Mr. Estak?
Yes.
Mr. Radowitz?
Yes.
Mayor LaPani?
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian?
Yes.
Chair Savachi?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you. All right.
David.
All right, I'm gonna ask, give everyone a couple minutes to leave because we have one last agenda item and I know it'll get a little noisy, so.
Craig.
Talk to them. Okay.
We will endeavor to keep you when they're able to keep you.
What are we talking about? What's the last one?
What's that? You feel like my wife. You want to answer that question? No. Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
He shut down the,
He and I are talking. With determination, what we're going to do with the ordinance. Once he tells me what we're going to do, I will let you know. So I know I will talk to him. I may have an answer tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see what Friday the 13th brings. No problem. I understand it's on your copy, or it's almost on the top of mine.
Excuse me, we still have more things to do, so if you're gonna leave, please leave. If you're gonna stay, please sit down.
How do you feel about that?
She's happy about that.
Okay, we're gonna turn it over to Mr. Coyce for the last item on our agenda, which is a review of the draft 2022 Planning Board Annual Report. Mr. Coyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, I heard you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The draft 2022 Planning Board Annual Report has been prepared by the staff and basically gives a summary of all the applications and the actions that were taken by this planning board. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
No, I'm just going to say very comprehensive. Obviously, it was a busy year. So,
I would agree, it was probably one of the busiest years we've ever had here, not only just with applications, but obviously the complexity of the applications. I'd like to thank your staff for always providing whatever was needed, both to us and to the public. And we look forward to a seamless transition with you in the next coming year.
Thank you. It's our honor and pleasure to serve. Thank you.
is there any comments from the dais?
Will that be put on Civic Clerk, the report?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a public record.
It is a public record, yes.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay, so I guess it's a motion to adopt. No, we don't get.
Motion to adopt.
To adopt. I remember.
Can I just clarify that?
Sure.
What are we adopting? I see a meeting scheduled from 2022, but I don't see a report.
The report was sent.
The draft annual report?
Yeah.
I didn't see it on what you have.
Yeah, it's multiple pages.
Okay.
I can tell you the exact number. It consists of 15 pages. Has several sections. It follows a lot of the prior annual reports that have been done.
It was an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a draft, it was draft
It's a
document.
So it's not going to be on Civic.
Has attendance and all that good stuff. So.
All the details.
All right.
I make a motion to adopt.
Okay. I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Beason.
I didn't read it, abstain.
Mr. Delcor.
Yes.
Mr. Scobo.
Yes.
Mr. Hestag.
Yes.
Mr. Radowitz.
Yes.
Mayor LaPani.
Yes.
Vice Chair Julian.
Yes.
Chair Swachi.
Yes. We do have a regular business meeting, or we're gonna look to cancel that since we have nothing scheduled for January 26th?
Correct.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. Can I do that by affirmation, or do I need to do a roll call?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Anyone
January.
opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
There we go. Thank you. The January 26th business meeting is canceled. Our next meeting is February 2nd. And again, we had announced that there were 2 applications, the Bryson, I'm sorry. My eyesight, it's a little far to see that.
And Western Road.
And Western Road. And they're both going to be with notice, so. So
Well,
if
no,
anyone.
no, Bryson.
No, Bryson's not right. You're right.
Western
Sorry.
is supposed to be with.
Yes. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion of adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Good night, everyone.